Welcome back to Joshua's Magic, a channel about the intersection of the material and spiritual, the ordinary and the extraordinary. Today we're going to be considering the topic of magic in the Alice A. Bailey quotes, and we're going to end the stream after considering and exploring the quotes from the week with saying the Great Invocation. And if you have any comments or questions, leave them in the chat and I'll try to get to them. You can find all these quotes on my Instagram or Minds page. The links are in the description below. Without further ado, let's move to the first quote of the week. The powers of the magical age are many, and one of the reasons why the seventh ray is now making its appearance is that owing to the rapid perfection and integration of the human personality, higher integration between the soul and the personality is today more possible and more easily accomplished than ever before. The seventh ray is one of the seven rays. It's the ray of ceremonial order and magic. And the rays kind of cyclically come into manifestation on the planet. Several of them are in manifestation at one time, and then some of them aren't. So the major ray that was affecting the planet was the sixth ray of abstract idealism or devotion. And that's fading away. That was in play for roughly the last 2,000 years. And now the seventh ray of ceremonial order and magic is coming in. So that's kind of what's being referred to there. But anyway, continuing on. The new forms through which that much desired consummation can be effected must consequently, gradually and scientifically, must be scientifically developed. This, as you well conceive, will be achieved through the intensification of forces, through the etheric body, through the coordination of the seven major centers, and the establishing of the rhythmic relation of their rhythmic relationship. The seventh ray governs predominantly the etheric levels of the physical plane. It does not govern the dense physical, which is under control of the third ray. It is the vital or etheric body which is responsive to and developed by the incoming seventh ray influences. So the etheric body is like the energy counterparts, the higher levels of the physical plane, and the dense physical, the lower three subplanes of the physical plane that's what that is. But the third ray is the ray of active intelligence, is what he's referring to. In considering the methods whereby the seventh ray purposes are achieved, I would like to point out it is this part of our discussion that I am limited and handicapped by language, because we are dealing with that which is new and therefore not as yet to be truly comprehended. And with those developments, which will be eventually brought about by means of true and scientific magic. This new magic will have no more relation to the crude attempts and oft ridiculous undertakings of the magicians, alchemists, and performers of the past than cat has to an algebraic formula. I would remind you also that in the home of ancient magic, which you call Egypt, the magical work there performed was definitely concentrated upon producing physical effects and material results, and that the focus of the attention of the magician of the day can be seen in the stupendous production of those ancient and gigantic forms, standing silent and still in their pristine magnificence, which today call for the attention of archaeologists and travelers. The forms of lesser magic which they produced are dedicated to the magical protection of the physical form and allied matters. In later days, we have the appearance of alchemy in its many forms, plus its search for the philosopher's stone, and the teaching as to the three basic mineral elements. They were driven esoterically and from the subjective side of life to search for that which could unify the three lower physical levels, and this in its nature deeply symbolic of racial unfoldment, of course, meaning the human race. These levels symbolize the integration of man, physical, astral, and mental. Astral means emotional. When to these elements, the philosopher's stone is added and has done its magical work, then you have the symbolic representation of the control by the soul over the four of the four higher levels of the physical plane, the etheric or the energy levels. Of this desirable consummation, the Philosopher's Stone is the emblem. I say emblem, and I do not say symbol. A symbol is an outer and visible sign of an inner spiritual reality, carried out into expression upon the physical plane by the force of the inner embodied life. An emblem is man's formulation of a concept created by man, and embodying for him the truth as he sees it and understands it. A symbol is ever greater in its implications than an emblem. So there's a lot said there. The one of the interesting points is the kind of evolution of magic and what it's been used for in the past. And so in ancient Egypt, it was focused very much on the physical level, on manifesting physical things and building these stupendous monuments, presumably with some sort of levitation. And the lesser magics they used were on protecting the human body. Somebody was saying that the mummies, it may have even been the Tibetan, the mummies were actually like they did things that preserved the etheric body of those mummified. And so it actually kept that energy around. And maybe the souls in those bodies actually had a little bit of trouble moving on afterwards because the energy was so well preserved with the mummification ritual. But then later you have the alchemist movement and the symbolic philosopher's stone representing the perfection of the soul, having control over the three lower vehicles, physical, emotional, and mental. And he makes an interesting point about an emblem versus a symbol. That an emblem is sort of a concept or an idea that man comes up with to represent something, but a symbol is actually a representation of the inner life reflecting or manifesting in physical substance. So the human body could be seen as a symbol because it's a representation of that inner life. The planet could be a symbol, right? The great sphere that we're on, or it's not quite a sphere, but you get it, is a representation of the inner life within that planet. But the emblem is something you come up with to represent a certain concept. So that's kind of an interesting distinction there. But we will move on to the next quote. And this is from one of the Tibetan's famous lists. So this is A on that list. Black magicians and white. Much is said today among occult students these days, anent white and black magic, and much that is said is without force or truth. It has been truly said that between the two types of workers, the line of demarcation is so slight as to be difficult to recognize by those who, as yet, merit not the term knower. The distinction between the two exists in both motive and method, and might be summed up as follows. The white magician has for motive that which will be of benefit to the group for whom he is expending his energy and time. The magician on the left-hand path ever works alone, or if he at any time cooperates with others, it is with a hidden selfish purpose. The exponents of white magic interest themselves in the work of constructive endeavor in order to cooperate in hierarchical plans, to further desires of the planetary logos. The brother of darkness occupies himself with that which lies outside the plans of the hierarchy, and with that which is not included in the purpose of the Lord of the planetary ray. And this is another thing that's interesting and can also be confusing. The Tibetan uses all sorts of different terms to shed different lights or different perspectives on things. Anyway, continuing on. The white magician, as has been earlier said, works entirely through the greater Deva builders. So the Devas are basically a parallel evolution to humankind. You could think of them sort of like angels. They build the substance in all sorts of levels of creation, and they're responsive to thoughts and emotions of humanity. So if you think of some scene, you imagine it, the Deva builders surrounding you will create that in mental matter. So that's part of the magic of creation, is this interplay between human and Daevic lives. And you can't communicate with Devas like normal. Like you can't say things and they'll understand it. They just respond to like certain stimuli, like thoughts and emotion, or even sounds. So that's a little bit about the Devas. The white magician works entirely through the greater Deva builders, and through sound and numbers he blends their work and thus influences the lesser builders who form the substance of their bodies, and therefore all that is. So the white magician works on a higher level with the higher devas, and then those higher devas, trigger lesser devas. But he doesn't work directly with the lesser devas, which are closer to physical existence or physical manifestation per se. He works through group centers and vital points of energy, and from thence produces in substance the desired results. The dark brother works directly with substance itself and with the lesser builders. He does not cooperate with the forces which emanate from the egoic levels, meaning the soul levels. The lesser cohorts of the army of the voice are his servants, and not the directing intelligence in the three worlds. And he therefore works primarily on the astral and physical planes, only in rare cases working with mental forces, and only in a few special cases hidden in cosmic karma is a black magician found working on the higher mental levels. Yet the cases which are to be discovered are the main contributing cause to all manifesting black magic. It's a very interesting statement. It sort of calls back to my perception of it anyway, is the creation of the solar system, and that some of the high angels or sons of the morning disagreed with the plan for the solar system. And that's when some of this black magic on the higher mental levels occurred, which created this rift in the solar system, so to speak. That's my understanding anyway. I might as well read through the reference, that 94 note. So these are a few things, a little more hard to understand than the Tibetan, but magic. The art of divine magic consists in the ability to perceive the essence of things in the light of nature, the astral light, and by using the soul powers of the spirit to produce material things from the unseen universe. And in such operations, the above and the below must be brought together and made to act harmoniously. And these quotes are all from the Secret Doctrine. Magic is the second of four vidyas and is the great Mahavidya in the tantric writings. It needs the light of the fourth vidya, Atma Vidya, thrown on it in order to be white magic. Black magic is defined by HPB as follows. Black magic employs the astral light for the purposes of deception and seduction, whereas the white magician employs it for the purpose of information and aiding in evolution. Black magic works with opposing poles. The white magician seeks the point of equilibrium, of balance, and of synthesis. Black magic has for its symbol the inverted five-pointed star. White magic uses the same symbol with the point uppermost. Black magic is Mahavidya without the light of Atma Vidya. White magic is Mahavidya illumined by the Atma Vidya. Black magic is ruled over by the moon. White magic is ruled over by the sun. Black and white magic arose during the Great Schism, which started the fourth root race. That's the Atlantean root race. Black magic is based on the degradation of sex and of the created function. White magic is based on the transmutation of the creative faculty into higher creative thought. The generative organs being neglected by the inner fire, which passes to the throat, the center of creative sound. Black magic deals with the forces of involution. White magic works with the powers of evolution. Black magic is concerned with the form, with matter. White magic is concerned with the life within the form, the spirit. By the way, if you're enjoying this, please leave a like on the video. It would really help me out to get this out to more people. But we will move on to the next quote being considered. One of the main hindrances to the correct apprehension of the laws of occultism, and their practical application lies in the fact of the comparative newness of the Occident. The Occident is basically the West, whereas the Orient being the East. And the rapid changes which have been the outstanding feature of European and American civilization. The history of Europe dates back a bare 3,000 years, and that of America, as we know, barely as many centuries. Occultism flourishes in a highly prepared atmosphere, in a highly magnetized environment, and in a settled condition, which is a result of age-long work upon the mental plane. This is one reason why India provides such an adequate school of endeavor. Their knowledge of occultism dates back tens of thousands of years, and time has set its mark even upon the physique of the people, providing them with bodies which offer not that resistance which Occidental bodies so oft afford. It was a really weird sentence, but basically the physical bodies of people in India have been I was going to say shaped or conditioned. I'm not sure what the right word is, but they've come to a state where the resistance to sort of energies working through them and occult work, there's not the same kind of resistance that there is in the bodies of people in the West. The environment has been long permeated with the strong vibrations of the great ones, meaning the masters of wisdom, who reside within its borders and who, in their passage to and fro, through their proximity, continuously magnetize the environing ether. This in itself affords another line of least resistance, for this etheric magnetization affects the etheric bodies of the contacted population. These two facts of time and of high vibration result in the stability of rhythm, which facilitates occult work and offers a quiet field of mantric and ceremonial enterprise. So basically, he's outlining how India, all of this sort of preparation has been done that allows for occult work, the sort of bridging of matter and spirit to be done and worked out. Whereas in the West, there's been all sorts of change and jostling, and even the last week with the Trump assassination, you see all this political change and sort of chaos going on. Fortunately, not more chaos. I'm glad the assassin didn't succeed. Otherwise, we'd be in a lot more trouble. Um, but with all this constant change, even though much of it has been productive, it doesn't create an environment for this kind of clean connection between matter and spirit. Whereas in India, there has been that connection, and the occult work is easier to proceed there. And I think this also applies to the person. You take the macrocosm here of part of the world and you apply it to yourself. Like if you're endeavoring to work in white magic or to walk the spiritual path, are you having constant change? Are your thoughts and feelings erratic? Or are you able to have an environment where you're able to focus on the mental plane, where you're able to still your emotions and allow the precipitation of the higher spiritual energies to come down, and eventually you working with them and furthering the spiritual plan. That's kind of, I think, the microcosmic symbol. So we'll move on to the next quote. This one is my thoughts on it. It's not by Alice Bailey. The steps of any magical work are used to manifest outcomes in the world, even by people who have little to no awareness of the magical arts. The first step in the creation, the first step is the creation. I can't even read my own writing right. First step is the creation of a thought on the mental plane. Once the thought is clearly defined, the next stage is clothing it in emotional or astral energy. When the idea is clear and then clothed in enough desire or emotion, it becomes magnetic and will eventually lead to a manifestation on the physical plane. Let's take the example of a child wanting a dog. There's a clear idea of having this new pet, this new dog. That thought is clothed in the child's desire and will eventually lead to physical speech asking his parents for a dog. If the kid's focus is maintained on that goal, the parents are likely to acquire to him, to acquiesce to him and get a dog, provided there aren't more powerful mitigating factors. So that's the thing. Like you can have your energy directed in the right way, but if there's a powerful blockage, a sort of counterforce, it's not gonna manifest the way you want it. If for some reason the parents can't or won't get a dog and the child maintains his commitment to the goal, he will likely get a dog one day, either on his own or when he moves out through the unfolding of other events to make it happen. This method of vitalizing thought forms is used by successful businessmen all the time, though they likely have no thought about it being magical work at all. So we often think of magic of manifesting physical effects. You reach out and the lightsaber comes into your hand, or you're able to fly, or just create a fireball or something. But like the first quote, those are all physical effects. And white magic is more concerned with producing effects in a subtle way, right? They work with the higher life and it eventually precipitates down to the physical, but it's not as immediate as um, you know, levitating over a building or creating a bar of gold or something like that. So businessmen and anybody who's really achieving successful results is using this method of magic. You might even say meditation or concentration, but they have the clear thought, they have the desire and emotional energy put to it. And that creates this thought form. And when you're working with white magic, eventually when you've got the thought form to be vitalized enough, you just release it so that it's not attached to you. What happens most times is the thought form just sort of remains connected to the person. It doesn't go out there, right? And so, like, it's sort of unconsciously, I'll give you an example. You're watching a commercial for Arby's, and they have now Arby's has hamburgers, and you think, oh, that looks good, right? And so you have that thought, and then you start desiring it. And then so you created this thought form for yourself. And then if it's strong enough, it'll influence you to then want to go out and go to Arby's. And maybe, there's other things in the way and you won't follow through with it, and that thought form will eventually die off and fade away. But that's kind of how it works. And so if you had this, let's say you needed a children's hospital in the area. If you focused on that thought and you vitalized it with the appropriate energy and you were able to release it from your aura, it would go out there and it would connect with receptive minds who were open to the idea of the children's hospital and might work at actually producing it. But the businessman is usually in a position to execute these things. But he has a vision for the direction he wants to take the business in or the new project within the business. He plans it out. He gathers the emotional energy to it, but he talks about people. He talks about it with people in the organization, and their energy gets put to it. And so, on an inner level, this idea keeps getting strengthened, and eventually it moves forward into physical manifestation with whatever project or new business it is. So I hope that's clear on how some of this magical stuff plays out, even when you're not trying to do any kind of magic. But thinking clearly is what's the sort of basis of magical work, or the ability to think clearly. So the final quote, we've got Boromir being tempted by the ring in Lord of the Rings here. The conditions for white magic. In considering the factors requiring adjustment prior to undertaking the work of magic, we are dealing with that which is of eminently practical value. Unless students of magic enter upon this pursuit fortified by pure motive, clean bodies, and high aspiration, they are foredoomed to disappointment and even disaster. All those who seek to work consciously with the forces of manifestation and who endeavor to control the energies of all that is seen need the strong protection of purity. This is a point which cannot be too strongly emphasized and urged, and hence the constant injunctions to self-control, comprehension of the nature of man, and devotion to the cause of humanity. The pursuit of magical investigation is dangerous in three ways. If a man's bodies are not sufficiently purified, and their atomic vibration is not sufficiently high, he is in danger of overstimulation when brought into contact with the forces of nature, and this inevitably entails the destruction and disintegration of one or other of his bodies. At times, it may entail the destruction of two or more, and when this is the case, it involves a significant setback to the egoic or soul unfoldment, for it requires in such cases a much longer interval between incarnations, owing to the difficulty of assembling the needed materials in the sheaths. So there are cases when you're handling magic wrongly, or your forces aren't purified enough that it can destroy your astral body or your mental body, or maybe your etheric body. I think some of those would just outright kill you. But the soul's process of rebuilding those bodies for the next incarnation will make it take significantly longer time before you're able to incarnate again. Yeah. So further, unless a man is strengthened in his endeavor by right motive, he is liable to be to be led astray by the acquisition of power. Knowledge of the laws of magic puts into the hands of the student powers which enable him to create, to acquire, and to control. Such powers are fraught with menace, and to the unprepared and the unready, for the to the unprepared and the unready. For the student can, in this case, turn them to selfish ends, use them for his own temporal material advancement, and acquire in this way that which will feed the desires of the lower nature. He takes, therefore, the first step towards the left-hand path, and each life may see him progress forward towards it with greater rapidness until, almost unconsciously, he will find himself in the ranks of the Black Masters. Such a state of affairs can only be offset through the cultivation of altruism, sincere love of man, and the steady negation of all lower desire. The third danger which menaces the unwary student of magic lies in the fact that when he tampers with these forces and energies, he is dealing with that which is akin to his lower nature. He therefore follows the line of least resistance. He augments these energies, thereby increasing their response to the lower and to the material aspects of his nature. This he does at the expense of his higher nature, retarding its unfoldment and delaying his progress. Incidentally, he also attracts the attention of those on the left-hand path who are ever at the outlook on the who are ever on the lookout for those who can be bent to their purposes, and he becomes unwittingly at first an agent on the side of evil. So this last one I find pretty interesting, that when you're working with these forces of nature out there, there's sort of a correspondence within you. And so if you're using and strengthening and playing with natural forces out there, the lower forces within you get strengthened, and it kind of diminishes your connection to the higher. So that's a danger I think a lot of people aren't really aware of. And Madame Blavatsky, one thing she's famous for saying is that all magic is black magic until you make contact with the holy guardian angel, which is the soul or the higher self. And so you really shouldn't be trying to do anything with magic until you have enough soul contact to follow that and to wisely move forward. You've got to make contact with the soul to see if you're actually furthering the good of the whole, the good of the group, evolutionary plans. If not, it's just whatever seems best to you, which more than likely will have a lower indication, such as fulfilling your personal desires. Continuing, it will be apparent, therefore, that the student has need of the following qualities before he undertakes the arduous task of becoming a conscious master of magic. Physical purity. This is a thing not easily to be acquired, but entails many lives of strenuous effort. Through abstinence, right conscience, clean living, vegetarian diet, and rigid self-control, the man gradually raises the vibration of his physical atoms, builds a body of ever greater resistance and strength, and succeeds in manifesting forth a sheath of greater refinement. Etheric freedom. This term does not convey all that I seek to impart, but it suffices for need of a better. The student of magic who can safely undertake the enterprise will have constructed an etheric body of such a nature that vitally or pranic that vitality or pranic force and energy can circulate unimpeded. He will have formed an etheric web of such tenuosity that it forms no barrier to the consciousness. This is all that can be said on this subject, owing to the danger involved, but it suffices to convey the information to those who are beginning to know. Astral stability. The student of magic aims above all to purify his desires, so to transmute his emotions, that the lower physical purity and the higher mental responsiveness and transmutative power may be equally available. Every magician has to learn the fact that in this solar system, during the cycle of humanity, the astral body is the pivotal point of endeavor, having a reflex effect on both the other sheaths, the physical and mental. He therefore aims at transmuting, as has often been said, the lower desires into aspiration, at changing the lower crude colors which distinguish the astral body of the average man for the clearer, purer tones of the spiritual man, and of transforming its normal chaotic vibration and the stormy sea of life for the steady rhythmic response of that which is highest and the center of peace. These things he effects by constant watchfulness, unremitting control, and steady meditation, but not suppression. Suppressing the emotions is not the path forward, it's a path to delay progress. So don't let some of these things trigger you into, well, I got to stifle my emotions. It's not about stifling it, it's about gradually allowing them to become calm and peaceful and rightly controlled, but not suppressed. Mental poise. These words are used in the occult sense, wherein the mind, as it has been commonly understood, becomes the keen, steady instrument of the indwelling thinker, and the point from which he can travel onwards to higher realms of comprehension. It is foundation stone whence the higher expansion can be initiated. Let not the would-be student of magic proceed in his investigations and his experiments until he has attended to these injunctions, and until the whole bent of his thought is towards their manifestation and their demonstration in his everyday life. When he has so worked ceaselessly and untiringly, and his physical plane life and service bear witness to the inner transmutation, then he can proceed to parallel his life with magical studies and work. Only the solar angel can do the work of the white magician, and he effects it through the control of the lunar angels and their complete subjugation. They are arrayed against him, and until through meditation, aspiration, and control he bends them to his will, and they become his servants. I'm not sure exactly what the lunar lords are, but my understanding is there's something like the lower forces in the personality, and um, the solar angel is the soul. So until you're the master of your personality versus being mastered by it, your thoughts come in just from out of the blue and then you get on some tangent or, your desires come up and you just go with that. Until you get those things more under control, you can't really move forward safely with magic. So those are some of the dangers and some warnings. It's a good way to wrap things up, I think. But we'll move on to the saying of the great invocation. Let me pull up this image here. The great invocation is, for those who don't know, prayer that Alice Bailey put out there, regarded it to be of a lot of importance. But it's a prayer or a meditation, depending on how you look at it, for bringing about the new age and the right energies coming down from the Spirit to mankind. So when you're saying it, focus on the intention behind the words, not necessarily the words themselves. So let me share screen here. Okay. Take a minute to ready yourself, to allow yourself to be a channel for the higher light of the spiritual world. And we'll begin. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men, let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men, may Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out. May it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Om. Thanks everybody for joining me. Glad you showed up, and remember to leave a like on the video. Consider sharing it with somebody who might find it of value, and if you've seen a few of these, maybe you want to subscribe. Also, if you want to check out my Instagram line page and leave a like or an upvote on, that'd really help me out there. I appreciate that. Till next time, I'll see you later. This has been Joshua's Magic, over and out.